Target Team Ganassi's Scott Dixon has put himself into contention for this year's IndyCar title with a brilliant victory at Watkins Glen last Sunday. But as the New Zealander cruised into victory lane, behind him the tempers were flaring after an incident between Tony Kanaan and Sam Hornish Jr. After a verbal altercation between the two drivers, the row descended into a pit lane brawl between various crew members. Meanwhile, another solid performance from Dario Franchitti still keeps him at the top of the table. But who will win? The Firestone Indy 200 from the Nashville Superspeedway. Hello and welcome. As expected, there is plenty of controversy surrounding the Indy Racing Series just at the moment, particularly following last weekend's ugly scenes. IndyCar officials, though, have been quick to react and they've issued various fines and sanctions. It all started several laps before the end of the race when Kanaan and Hornish got a little bit too close for comfort. As you can see here, there was some contact. But then at the end of the race, the Brazilian Kanaan, as a result of this, he drove at Hornish as they entered the pits, although the pair did not actually touch then. So now let's see in more detail what actually happened when they, after the race scenes, because once they were out of the car, they started to argue. Various others, as you'll see, got involved, including obviously team members. But unfortunately, Sam Hornish's dad, Sam Hornish Sr., he's the gentleman you'll see in the sort of check shirt in a moment. There he is. It looked more like an ice hockey brawl for a while because, as you'll see, a wrestling match starts and unfortunately Mr. Hornish Sr. Finishes up on his back on the deck. It's not really very good. Officials have fined both drivers an undisclosed amount after all this. I mean, this is just not the sort of thing you want to see. Both the teams, Penske and Andretti Green, have been fined, but only $25,000. That's not much by standards in America. Hornish's father, not surprisingly, has been banned from the pit lane for this weekend. Quite why he was there, I don't know anyway. And another individual, he's also been banned too from the pits. And Kanaan, meanwhile, has now apologised, we understand. He's apologised to Hornish for driving at him at the end of the race. So there was a peaceful end to it, but it was all a bit unnecessary. And you just don't need to see scenes like this at a modern motorsport event. But it is now behind them. And as we'll see soon, they've got a lot of racing still to do. So thankfully it's gone, but they both had things to say after it.
You know, it's unfortunate the way that turned out, but you know, somebody's going to run into me coming into pit lane. You know, they better expect that I'm going to say something to them about it, because it's not really fair to, you know, it's not really something that's going to jeopardize my safety, but you got, you know, all these guys in here that you know, go over the wall and they don't have a car around them to protect them. You start running into people, you take the chance of getting somebody hurt, and you know, unfortunately, you know, for me, I guess, you know, my best, you know, road course finish, and you know, we got to have this happen, but you know, I just say that's poor sportsmanship.
Just your side of what happened here when we came into pit lane.
He hits me at the track. We come in, he's yelling at me for no reason. He hit me from behind. And obviously we start to have a hot conversation, which is normal. I think, you know, you've seen in every race and every racetrack, when two drivers have a problem, they sort it out. You put your dad in the middle, put your dad to bump me out of the way. I think to start a fight, it takes one guy, and then his dad start the whole thing, and then it's between the drivers. And if we can't sort it out, it's between Brian Barnard. So his dad should not bump me out of the way. I'm not going to beat the old man. I think it's totally unfair, because at that point he gave me all the reasons to it, but I don't want to fight. It was an incident that happened in the racetrack, two champions. We will sort it out. Am I going to have my own reasons to, you know, to talk bad things about him, and he'll talk bad things about me? But nobody else should have got involved in that, and that's what he did. His dad just got in the middle, and I don't think it's the right way to do it.
Well, thankfully the incident is now behind both their men, but I'm sure that it's something my guest Paul Cherry and Ben Collins will be discussing. Before we do that, though, let's check out the headlines for this week. Last week's winner, Scott Dixon, continues his good form. He starts on pole, but alongside him, the championship leader, Dario Franchitti. The two drivers involved in that incident, Tony Kanaan and Sam Hornish, they filled row 2, but Milka Dunno has crashed out of the action and will not start, despite coaching from Thomas Enger. Well now, Ben Collins, let's go to you first of all. It's good to see you back again at the Sky Sports studios. What did you make of that bit of nonsense?
It's pretty comical, really. It's just unfortunate they had the wrong characters there in the pit lane that sort of brought something about that really didn't need to happen. I think Hornish's father getting in the way and making much ado about nothing.
And Paul, I gather that you had your own thoughts about what happened out there. It was all a bit pointless, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's just another classic case of, they don't enforce any black flag rules when a race is on, especially if it's a Penske car. I hate to say it, there is that situation. If he'd been black flag, came in, served his penalty, it would have been cut and dried. But, Sam was very optimistic in his move on the track, and they were both lucky to get away with it and finish in good positions. Bumping and boring when you get into the pit lane, that's, very Formula Ford.
Yeah, and also somebody's dad getting involved in shoving a driver around is all a bit silly, isn't it?
Well, you want to go to the Formula Ford Festival, you see a few fathers eyeing each other up.
Formula Ford.
But this is not Formula Ford.
This is a multi-million-dollar operation.
Right. No, I mean, I'm sure Roger will be less than enthusiastic about having Sam Hornish Sr. down in pit row much further this year.
And did you think $25,000 fine was a bit sort of token, a bit desultory?
The interesting one was the undisclosed figure for the drivers. It varies what you believe, but I'm sure in America it will have put the TV ratings up.
Yeah, and Ben, do you think maybe there was an element of that? It was all just a stunt to get a bit of publicity, but it seemed genuine at the time, didn't it?
I think so. There's a lot to and fro on the track. I think, like I say, it was a very ambitious move from Hornish's point of view, and inevitably Kanaan was going to do something back to him, and he chose to do it on the way into the pit lane, which is a bit unprofessional. He might have waited till later on the racetrack, and that's really where the whole thing should have been settled on the track.
Absolutely. Anyway, it's behind us now. Let's now move on, deal with this week. Thankfully it has gone, but ironically they're side by side, these two, on the starting grid, and of course it's a different track, Paul.
Yes, we're up to a mile oval. This is one of the short tracks favoured by both Dario and Scott. And there they are, lined up 1-2 here, so that's going to be an interesting. But obviously Tony and Sam in the second row got it all to fight for straight into the first turn.
And a different surface?
Yes, very abrasive, so there'll be a lot more marbles on the track, so we'll see people getting offline, probably spearing into the wall a little more regularly.
Yeah, Ben, you've done a lot of oval racing. Is this the sort of track that you'd fancy having a crack at?
Absolutely. I mean, I raced with Scott as my teammate on the short ovals, and he's very strong on that. I think the interesting thing with the surface is that how the guys use their tyres during the race will be a key thing.
Yeah, if it's very abrasive, this is going to be a tough old race.
For sure, and it will depend how their cars are set up. So it might be that a few of the drivers got quick setups from qualifying that don't translate into a good race car.
Yeah,
which always makes the races interesting.
I have to say, I'm always a fan of oval racing. It's terrific stuff. But let's go on to Dario, because this is a man many people are saying maybe was sort of getting towards the end and whatever, but he's still driving pretty well.
He's certainly having his best season as long as we've been watching him in the IRL. Obviously spurred on by some good results and the Indy 500. But Dario's always been a tough competitor. He's been in the States for 10 years now, and he's been at the front of the grid in all those 10 years. Yes, he might be considering retiring, but certainly I think if he picks up a championship, he's not going to throw the towel in at this moment.
And of course, Weldon is being sort of outshadowed now. I mean, the man who's obviously been getting a lot of headlines quite rightly, but suddenly Dario's taking most of the limelight and Dan's struggling more.
I don't understand Dan's situation. He came into the start of the season very, very strong. They were very strong in pre-season testing, won early races, and all of a sudden here he's just slipped back. And at Watkins Glen he had no real answer as to why he couldn't match Scott. And in a team with their resources, worst case scenario, you'd put the same setup from Scott's car on Dan's, it would make him feel right. But no, he was nowhere in the race at all. Their strategy brought Dan to the front, but that was the only way that they picked up any places. But
elsewhere on the grid, in fact, things are even worse for Darren Manning, because Dan may be struggling, but Darren's actually at the back, isn't he? I mean, doesn't look good for him.
No, I mean, I think the real talent in that team is definitely Scott Dixon. He's probably the most naturally talented driver in the series, and that's definitely coming to the front. I'd be surprised, actually. I think it's going to be a great championship fight between Scott and Dario. And we'll see that in the race. I think it's going to be very entertaining to see those two, because I think from this stage in the season, Scott's had some bad luck in the first part of the season, which I think he's making good for now.
Yeah, and Paul, what are your thoughts about Darren? Because it's not been a good time for him, has it?
Well, as we've said, Darren's no longer with Chip Ganassi Racing. He's with AJ Foyt.
Right.
He hasn't got the same level of equipment or engineering. They don't do any testing because of budgetary constraints. Darren's relatively good on the short ovals, but they clearly had problems getting the setup right here. And as we said, this track is very hard on tyres, and they just couldn't make the car work on the tyres. They've had to think about it. Hopefully they've got a reasonable race car underneath them.
Yeah, but I mean, Darren presumably knew all that when he did the deal. I mean, unless you're just desperate for work. I don't know.
he has made himself look actually better than when he was with Chip, because he's been finishing all the races.
Well, that's
he's
good.
not had accidents. He's put the team on a much higher plane than ever it was before. With AJ's grandson, you know, they got 3 laps in and they had an accident, therefore they were always going home. Darren's given them some first-rate results. They've had a 5th place, which is unbelievable. You know, AJ Foyt, whilst is a legend motor racing in America, he is struggling to embrace the 21st century. He doesn't appreciate computers and data. He believes that, you know, a driver's got talent. Without it, he's no good, and with it, he should be winning the races, and that's purely where they are. So, I think Darren's, you know, re-motivated his own career, and will move on from there. But he's doing a great job for AJ Foyt at the moment.
Okay, before we go to the break, before we go to the race, let's just get your thoughts about the way the race might turn out. What about you, Ben? How do you see this? Who's your likely winner?
I think Scott Dixon will get it. I think that'll be obviously great to see the first 4 make it through the first corner with sort of the conflict that's going into that with the second row. Obviously they clash in the previous race, and there's a lot to fight for. But I think Scott's on good form. He's got those race wins under his belt. He's going for the championship. He's on pole. He's got the inside line. And I think that if they've got the strategy right and their fuel stops, and he's very clever with that, so is Ganassi, that they'll take it to the flag. Okay, and Paul, your thoughts? We're hearing, by the way, heavy rain is causing a problem, so there is a deal of difficulty with the weather.
Yes, unfortunately I looked at weather forecast earlier, and there was isolated thunderstorms, so if that's there, then we're going to predictably have either a delay at the start, or during the event we'll have to stop. But the team that are good at their strategy is indeed Ganassi's team, but at this moment in time Dario's going to be smart. He's going to just go for points. Okay, thank you very much indeed, both of you. We're going to take a short break. We hope to return with the race very soon. See you in a couple of minutes.
From the Premier League than ever before. The big games. Every club. All these matches and more to come. A new season on Sky Sports. All the football you'll ever need.
Foster's Super Chilled. Well, you wouldn't want a warm beer, would you?
If you phone 2 insurance companies, you can compare 2 prices. If you fill in one form at comparethemarket.com, you can compare hundreds. In seconds. The choice is yours. For cheaper car insurance, comparethemarket.com.
Make your meat meaty-licious with Coleman's squeezable English mustard!
Spiritual. No. It's S something something N something. Spanner?
The new Clio by Rip Curl, for the surfer in you.
Now, we should be going back to live action from the Firestone Indy 200 trackside, but I'm afraid it's not very good news at the moment, because what we've got are pictures of rain, heavy rain, lots of it, all over the track. The outlook isn't good, and we understand that there will be a long delay. Now, this delay possibly will develop into a really serious delay. It will be postponed, and the race will not happen today. It'll be raced again another day when they can fit it in, but at the moment it's not very good, and I think there's little chance of live racing coming up very soon. Paul, let's just get your thoughts as we watch these pictures coming down. I mean, obviously unraceable at the moment. What do they tend to do in these scenarios?
Well, generally these events, they always book what they call a rain day.
I mean, that is seriously unraceable.
That will take a good hour and a half to 2 hours to clear. The problem there is when it rains, it comes down absolutely thick, hard and fast.
Yeah.
And it'll take a long time, and as we know from this series, there's absolutely no way they will go near the track when there's any moisture. So what they make in the rules anyway is what we call rain day event, which is the following day, and sometimes that's on a Monday. There's no spectators, but they hold the race.
They would still do it, would they?
The advantage here is this is Saturday night. You see the lights coming on now as dusk creeps over. What will happen is they will make a statement probably in an hour, and they will run it probably tomorrow afternoon if they decide to cancel it this evening.
Yeah, so despite the fact, as you say, no spectators, would the American TV people still be there to cover it?
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, it'll still be done in that way. So all the commercial implications are fulfilled and completed. They race and it's broadcast and so on.
No, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's just they don't get any punters through the gate.
Well, there may be some diehards turn up. There may be some people crouched under umbrellas there at the moment. I can see somebody just down there. But in all seriousness, a scattering of rain's easy to get rid of.
Yeah.
When it's like this, the trouble is it's a lot of rain.
Ben, you know about the way this works out there. I mean, rain is obviously such bad news for this type of racing that they are so paranoid about wet tracks. I mean, this is a seriously wet track and likely to remain so. I gather the website says there is moisture on the track. That's proper moisture, isn't it?
Absolutely, that's putting it very mildly. Indy cars don't handle too well in the wet, and largely they don't even build wet tyres to go on the tracks. And a bit of moisture. They have these. The Americans have these fantastic trucks with jet engines strapped to the back of them for drying off small bits of dampness on the track, but not for floods like that. And that'll be a good few hours before it's raceable.
Well, at the moment, there's no sign that the rain is going to let up. That's the problem, Paul, because as you know, it takes a long time for tracks to dry anyway, and it's raining pretty hard right now.
As we saw from those pictures there, you know, there's dark clouds for some considerable distance.
Yeah.
It's not a sort of flash flood there. So no, I'm going to have to sit on our hands for a while.
And also, I think the chances of the track drying out quickly, even if it was to stop raining in, say, 15 minutes' time, I mean, where's the drying going to come from? I mean, unless there's a sun and strong wind, that track's going to stay wet for a long while.
Well, as we saw at Indianapolis this year, you know, we stopped for rain at 116 laps, and it was fairly torrential then. Bear in mind, that's a 2.5 mile track.
Yeah.
But they got that cleared up in about an hour and 3/4.
Yeah.
Now, also the weather was better
and
there.
And also it was a hot track.
Absolutely. The track was very
heat
hot,
there to dry it out.
and there was also a good level of wind blowing across. So all those things helped. Trouble is in Nashville, Tennessee there, it's very dank, very damp, and there's very little air movement. So we could struggle here.
And Ben, from a driver's perspective, these are frustrating times, aren't they? Because you're all keyed up, ready to go. This is you're about to put everything into operation that you've been doing in practice and so on and qualifying, and suddenly race off or delay.
Yeah, and there's also a big change. Even if it dries, there'll be a big change in how the track will handle from qualifying to the race. So the engineers will be frantically trying to work out how it will affect the performance of the car, how the tyres will last. So if they get the race on, how that will affect their strategies. But it is very difficult, and the likelihood is they'll have to calculate their projections for the next day.
Trouble is, drivers can't go anywhere or do anything. They've got to sort of stay there on the case just in case. I mean, it's possible that it would stop and suddenly there's someone come out and it'll all start to, get back, and they could be racing soon. So they can't afford to even go back really to the hotel and chill out or in the motorhome and have a sleep.
No, but they've got lovely motorhomes, so I don't feel too sorry for them.
Oh, right.
They get quite well pampered in IndyCar, so they'll be sitting tight. But for the guys that are at the front, it's a shame that they don't get to capitalise on what they've done in the qualifying sessions. But they'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, and really in a tight sort of schedule throughout the season, Paul, this is the sort of last thing you want, really, because it impacts on the rest of the week, doesn't it? Because, as we know, racing again next weekend. That's if they do race on a Monday, that's one less day now to get everyone up to the next venue and so on. I mean, it just tightens up and becomes very difficult.
Sure, well, I think we've got to scratch our heads. I think, if my memory serves me right, the IRL, or the league as it's now known, which started in '94, has not yet actually cancelled one event for bad weather. They've either held it on the following day or got on with it later on in the day.
Yes.
So there's no precedence as to setting the points for that race, whether you say there's no points or you say that there may be points. just based on the grid. So we've got an interesting set of circumstances.
And also, I just wonder what would happen. Let's assume it rains all today, through into tonight for them, and tomorrow. Do they then go on to Tuesday?
No. Because they've got a race in the following week.
Right,
they
because you've got to physically get up country.
Yeah, I mean,
they're going up to mid-Ohio.
That's correct, to the road course. And in all honesty, they would obviously call it off. If they can't run tomorrow, they really haven't got time to get themselves sorted out.
So tomorrow. So what's your expert guess? Looking at the pictures we saw just a moment ago, it doesn't look good, does it?
I think, in all honesty, this evening we may be struggling to see racing from Nashville, and that's purely because it's 7:30 there now. By the time that all gets cleared up, you're going to be 9:30, 10 o'clock. The Americans traditionally struggle then for putting on things from a TV standpoint, and also people, the families are not going to want to stay there till 10 o'clock at night. Whether or not we'll get straight into Sunday morning or Sunday afternoon, I don't know.
We've got some pictures just coming in from the track. This is how bad it still is. The car's all covered up, being removed from the track. And it's still raining pretty hard, isn't it, as you can see there?
Well, that's a bad sign, because cars are now being wheeled back to the transporters. They have fabulous covers that fit over these cars, which are fairly waterproof. But the cars were all lined up, ready to go out on the grid. Obviously, they've had a decision already to say, right, we're not going to do anything here for an hour or so.
Right.
Take your cars away.
Yeah.
And that's clearly what's going on there now.
Okay, what we're going to do, I understand it is pretty well done and dusted, it's over. So we're just going to remind viewers at home of the situation at the moment as far as the championship currently stands. And this is how it looks right now, Paul. And we were mentioning earlier Dan Weldon, not struggling exactly, but disappointed with where he is at the moment on 313. And Dario with an almost 50-point lead at the top.
Yes, but don't forget Dario went into Watkins Glen with 65 points in the lead, and Scott with his win really clawed some back. I think, as Ben said earlier in the programme, it's going to be down to Scott and Dario. Dario's invigorated by the results he's had, and he's with a superb team.
Yeah.
And Scott, a former champion in this series, is really going for it now. He had bad luck to the start of the season. He has been a little overshadowed by Dan.
Yeah.
And I think he wants to make a mark on his own basis.
Right, and Ben, when you look at that, it makes really fascinating reading, doesn't it? As Paul was saying, Dario did have a bigger lead. Scott Dixon going really well at the moment. The lead is now down to what, just under 50. But would you say it's just between those two, or do you think there's a possible challenge for the title going to come from that next 3 or 4?
I think, well, Tony Kanaan obviously is a force to reckon with, and Dan Weldon as well, accomplished champion. But I think that's really the fire in Scott Dixon's belly, that there's two young drivers on the same team. He knows if he drops the ball that Dan's there to make him look bad, and he's pulled out all the stops to claw himself up the table. But my feeling is that Scott's got the car, the team, and so the fire from his teammates and the information he's getting to take it to the championship.
Do you know Dan quite well? Do you know Dan Weldon?
Yeah, most of those drivers I've raced with on and off.
Right,
and,
I was going to say, because I remember Dan from way back when he was karting, as a kid. I mean, what a life he's made for himself,
Absolutely.
He really did turn the right key, didn't he?
He did. He's had great success. He's been in some of the best cars year on year, going back a few years now. But I think he's, in many ways, made his match with Scott, so we'll see.
Everyone concerned will be sad to see these pictures, Paul, because, as you said, this is it basically. They're leaving the circuit, they're heading back to the transporters via the pit lane, and it's over.
Well, look at that water now. That is torrential. Yes, I mean, last time I saw rain that bad was in Indonesia last year. So this is not going to clear up. I mean, as Ben was saying about the jet dryers, they're great to put out there, but you can't put them out in this weather. You have to wait until the rain has completely stopped. So we could be half an hour away from that at earliest.
Okay, boys, well, I think we've got to call it a day, sadly, because the race is not going to start. Sorry to you at home about all that, but we can tell you that IndyCar is back again next weekend, happily. We hope the weather's going to be fine. This time it's scheduled to be on one of America's great road courses, mid-Ohio. It's a much earlier start as well. Make sure you join us for that. It's on Sunday, as you can see. The Honda 200 live from Lexington on Sky Sports 3 at 6:30 p.m. That's all for now. My thanks to my guests, Ben and Paul. It's sad that we didn't get a race. We hope to see you next time. From all of us, for now, it's goodbye, when we hope to have some racing soon.
More sport, news and views at skysports.com.